Yes, I am now a booktuber. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. So in a surprising plot twist, I started my reading journey this year. I used to be an avid reader when I was young and a teenager. I was obsessed with books like Twilight and Hunger Games, like a lot of people my age. But once I got into like later high school and college, I stopped reading altogether, and it's not until now at 28 years old that I've started to make an effort to start reading again. I think this journey also started because I discovered my local library, which we've all heard about, but not all of us take advantage of. Much to my surprise, I was browsing around one of my library branches and I saw this book. And I was like, excuse me, what is that? Oh my god. So in order to foster my new interest in trying to read more, and the YouTube algorithm is always very happy with me when I post anything related to Love is Blind, so I thought it'd be really fun to discuss this book with y'all. So today we're going to be covering Leap of Faith by Lauren Speed and Cameron Hamilton. And as a side note, if you're a big reader, give me some book recommendations, especially like maybe a gateway book, because I'm actually not bad at seeking out nonfiction like this, but fiction I struggle with. So because this is my booktuber debut, I don't know what I'm doing. You'd think reviewing a book is the same as reviewing a TV show, just apply the same logic, but for some reason it feels so different, and I'm just going to do my best. That being said, I'm not necessarily trying to pivot into reviewing books unless more Love is Blind people make books. I don't actually know if there's more, but I imagine they're going to be rare and few and far between. So I'm not trying to make this the best book review video ever, but I just kind of wanted something more laid back and chill with y'all and still talk about a topic you and the algorithm like. And I don't think this video substitutes like reading this book yourself, but also there will be a fair amount of spoilers because I'm going to talk about the whole book and the parts I found interesting. So proceed at your own risk. Reading, it feels so different than TV. Like, I feel like a YouTuber recap of a TV show kind of can substitute for watching the show itself. But for a book, I feel like you can't convey what it feels like to read a book. But maybe I'm just in my head about it. Anyway, if you're not a reader and still want some extra tea or want more information than what I say in this video, Lauren and Cameron, this couple, have a YouTube channel called Hanging with the Hamiltons, where you can get a lot of the tea that is in this book in various pieces of YouTube videos, and probably even more tea. I've watched a couple of those videos, and there's some extra information in the YouTube videos that aren't in the book. There's options if you're really obsessed with the Hamiltons. So first I want to talk a little bit about the book and how it's formatted, and then I'll go through the journey of the book and each part and what I thought of them. If you're not aware, Lauren Speed and Cameron Hamilton are known as one of the most successful couples that have come out of Love is Blind. They are one of two successful marriages that came out of season 1, and I feel like their love story in particular really provided a proof of concept to Netflix and the production company to be able to continue Love is Blind for many seasons to come. I do think if Lauren and Cameron had not been a part of that season, I don't know if Love is Blind would have the longevity it's having. And they're also very good about putting out a lot of extra information out there. I mean, writing this book, having their YouTube channel. They're both kind of like content creators and influencers these days, and overall seem just like good role models for a nice relationship. This book is not particularly new. I'm not on the cutting edge here, but it was written in 2021 and maybe released around the time that season 1's After the Altar came out. But I hadn't heard about it. I think I'm just not that plugged into Love is Blind news to hear about everything. And you know, every celebrity gets like a book deal at some point, so it wasn't that surprising. So the format of this book is chronological of Lauren and Cameron's relationship. When I read the preface, I was kind of scared because it's written in like we form. It felt like a we couple on Instagram, like taken to the next level. And I was like, oh God, this whole book is gonna be in we terms. That's so annoying. But no, it's just the preface. The book is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is alternating chapters from Lauren and Cameron's POV, and it covers the time before they met. Part 2 covers when Lauren and Cameron meet on the show up until their wedding. In those chapters, they alternate POV within the chapter, and it just says their name at the top. And that's how the rest of the book goes. And then part 3 covers everything from after the wedding to present day in 2021 when they wrote this. Also, at the end of each chapter, they put like little advice that's relevant to that chapter. They have like compatibility questions when you're going on the first few dates. Then later on, they'll have like more marriage advice, how to make a good impression on the in-laws, or how to compromise household chores and things like that. So it was kind of cute at the end. They did have this joint section that was advice. I forgot to mention that they also include this section where they have photos of all the various events and moments that they talk about throughout the book. The pages are a little more high quality and nice. So that was cute to see. And my overall review of this book is that it was pretty interesting. I mean, it was a super easy read, and for me that I'm still starting my reading journey, I love an easy book. A celebrity memoir is probably my favorite genre. Not too long. You can see there, 200 something pages, 250 pages. I don't think it's necessary reading for every Love is Blind fan. I don't think anything revolutionary was revealed in it. And it's not like, you know, extremely stimulating academic reading either. But if you're a big fan of Love is Blind itself and like the show and the process, this book has some really cool insight into the behind the scenes production of Love is Blind. And it's interesting too because they are on the first season of the show, so they have no precedent to know what to expect from it. So I think if you're just a fan of like behind the scenes tea or content, you would enjoy this book. A lot of that is in part 2 when they meet and they're on the show. And that was definitely my favorite part. I really, really enjoyed that. And also if you're like a fan of romance, I think this could be a good book for you. I know romance fiction is its own thing. Since it is written chronologically, it started to feel kind of just like a very interesting rom-com at times. I think it's just a fun read if you like romance, if you love love, and if you like behind the scenes of reality TV content. Let me go ahead and discuss the book, starting with part 1, which was before Lauren and Cameron met. This section of the book was interesting because it's setting up our characters, basically. We get to learn a lot of the backstory and romantic history of both Lauren and Cameron separately. And because this section alternates full chapters, we get a lot of Lauren talking about her life, her romantic struggles. She talks about her career. She actually opened up her own creative agency and talked about a time where she was struggling a lot financially and on the edge of eviction. She was lucky enough that her parents could bail her out and she was able to build her career from the ground up again. She talked about how she did some traveling around the time she was trying to like rediscover herself. I think she went to Cuba, she went to Italy, and she went to Paris right before the show started filming. Both Lauren and Cameron, they're like relatable but also feel like fictional rom-com leads. And it was just interesting to hear about why they were single. They were both in their early 30s. And Lauren apparently does have a background in performing, I guess. Her dad was a big producer person at BET, and Lauren herself was in pageants and did modeling. Maybe this is stuff that was in the Love is Blind season. I haven't rewatched season 1 in a minute. I don't know, I feel like in reality TV people are so reduced to like the 1 or 2 things they do, like this person's a nerd and this person's the slut and this person's the mean girl. They love to package a person so that we know exactly who we're rooting for, who we love, whatever. But in this book, you get to see kind of more the multidimensional real person behind this persona you saw for just a short snippet on reality TV. As far as Cameron goes, he was working more in a corporate setting. He apparently worked in coding for AI, like within healthcare. So he's really into AI, and he was kind of in a rut at his job. It was also interesting to hear about his like past career endeavors. Apparently, when he was younger, he was a firefighter for wildfires, and he describes this like near-death experience where he was like on the side of the cliff in the forest and firefighting and all this. And I was like, that's kind of hot. Like, that sounds like a rom-com guy lead. And then he also tried going to grad school for philosophy. And I think that makes sense why he's pretty like emotionally intelligent and like knows how to express his emotions. He talks about being that way and that he is expressive and kind of sensitive. It's hard. Like, I didn't get to fall in love with Lauren and Cameron in this way on their season. Like, of course I love them for like being good together and saying I do at the end, but like I feel like with this book and these chapters I got to know what led up to this Love is Blind moment, and that made like the Love is Blind experience feel more like high stakes and interesting, because it's crazy how many twists of fate got them to get cast on the show, and they ended up married. Their lives ended up changed in like 3 weeks or however long the show is. As far as their love lives, they did talk about their previous relationships. Apparently Lauren would try to date long distance, and she had a situation where her boyfriend cheated on her that was long distance, and that's when they broke up. And Cameron had had a few relationships too. He says he's kind of a romantic. He falls hard and fast, and we kind of saw that on the season. He kind of had a toxic relationship previous to Lauren that was kind of on and off, and a lot of arguing then making up. And after that relationship and ending it, he kind of realized how unhealthy that was. And so apparently both Lauren and Cameron got scouted to be on the show. I think for Lauren it was an email, and for Cameron it was a text message, which is so creepy. It's stupid, but I want like reality shows about the casting agents for reality shows, or like the glam squad for a famous celebrity. Like, those would be the best reality shows, but I think it would get too meta and scary for like the famous people involved. But anyway, so both Cameron and Lauren got scouted. They both had a very healthy skepticism about it, thought it was a scam. They were both kind of going through the casting process slowly. Cameron even details going to the psych evaluation and how it was like in this really far away, scary seeming clinic or something. He does talk about running into Barnett there. Through the book, they make it a point to mention other contestants when it's relevant. Cameron also revealed that the contestants do get paid, but it is less than minimum wage when you break it out hourly. They mention like doing the W-2s and all those things that are normal of onboarding. They also mention how like they were driven to location for the set like in a van covered with like trash bags on the windows to keep it all secret. Reality TV shows be doing too much sometimes. Like, I get it. I get the secrecy and all, but like, it's season 1 of a random Netflix show. Like, no one cares about it yet. So that kind of leads us into part 2, and this is what happened during the taping of Love is Blind. It covers Lauren and Cameron meeting, their engagement, and their wedding. This was absolutely my favorite part of the book. Like I said, it's so fascinating to see like the whole picture of being on a reality show. I think it added some realism that really helped me like buy into the love story more and like be excited about them meeting and developing a relationship. I've researched and analyzed reality TV so much that like I get so desensitized to it, and the final polished end product like doesn't sell the fantasy for me. Like, it's too perfect, it's too curated. You never see like a mic or a camera or like them filling out boring paperwork, which yes would be boring in practice, but in theory I'm just like, I can't help wonder, where are they sleeping? What storylines are getting cut? What is happening at meal times? Is this all real? Are these paid actors? It's hard to draw the line between real and fake when reality TV really tries to have this illusion of it all being so perfect and romantic and polished. This book was totally the opposite, and it was from Lauren and Cameron's separate points of view getting to set in this creepy way. Like, up until they're on set, they're still kind of confused and nervous that they're like getting kidnapped or something. I mean, they are put in a van with covered up windows. Their phones get taken away. They talk about that. Like, just them describing the experience, and it's the full experience, made me so much more like nervous and excited and like, oh my God, like it must have felt insane to be part of this first season, especially. And it made their love story even more wild that it happened successfully, because it just feels like they didn't even know if it was a legit experience at this point. Cameron describes how the set is kind of like artificial in some ways, and he wasn't sure what was real, what was fake. Like, apparently production made their own pool table, and it was like crooked or something because they made it themselves instead of like buying a pool table. And also Cameron says he fell on a bench, a workout bench, because the producers hadn't screwed it all the way. It was kind of just for show. It's those little details that I find so fascinating. That grittiness adds so much realism to the story. When they are describing leading up to their first date in the pods, like Cameron mentions, he had so many dates already that day, and a lot of them were whatever, and weren't memorable. But then he hears Lauren's voice for the first time, and it's like he feels this instant connection, and I was just like getting butterflies from like them meeting for the first time. It was just so much more romantic that way that it started to feel like a fiction, and that's why I like enjoyed this part, I think, because it just like I was immersed in the journey despite knowing how it ends. Like, it didn't matter. Each pod date is 10 minutes, which is pretty short. I don't know if I expected the first meetings to be like 10 minutes long. A lot of what I'll mention is the fun facts about production, because that's the most interesting to me. Oh my God, they talk about how in the pods and in the hallway that we see, there's this like intercom that like tells them when their 10 minutes are up in the pod, or when it's like it's time to enter the pods. And you know, you see all the guys like enter the pods all at the same time, which is so creepy and dystopian. Like, that's so Big Brother to have like a creepy intercom voice. Like, I can just picture it being like Squid Game or something, sounding all creepy. Something I've always wondered about Love is Blind is where the hell do they sleep? Because the sets that they hang out in are like a kitchen, a living room, a workout room, but no beds. Apparently they sleep in a hotel. At first they were sleeping in trailers that were really, really scrappy sounding, and had roaches apparently. So some of the women complained, and they got upgraded to just a regular hotel. I assume now the accommodations are fairly decent. I mean, should I assume that? It's reality TV, they still cut costs. And so apparently after the first couple of days, some contestants got sent home that weren't making connections. That's something else I wonder about with Love is Blind, like the logistics, because there's a lot of people there trying to find connections, and you end up just following, you know, 5 couples or whatever. Early on, if someone's not making connections, they get sent home. They do address alcohol and how it's treated on set. Drinks are always available. Production doesn't like push drinks on people. I think they mentioned that's like an assumption a lot of people might have about reality TV. A lot of the people that got cut actually were people that were just drinking so much that their dates were bad quality. But the way that they explained it was that like a lot of people, especially people that like to drink, they were going for the drinks like at 7 a.m. when they were starting filming. It's just kind of a way to take the edge off from going on like a million first dates. Now that I look at it from the perspective of like someone on the show, I'm like, I imagine it's a really nerve-wracking and scary to A, be filmed like almost 24/7, and be going on a million dates, and having to like make a good impression of yourself. If I was a drinker, I would probably be drinking to help ease the nerves. And both Lauren and Cameron talk about how they were relatively sober compared to the rest of the cast, and that's something that helped bond them together. Lauren talks about how like a lot of the guys were like straight up wasted on their dates. Yeah, imagine how easily that can happen if you just have like an open bar available to you and you're nervous. Like, that seems like a recipe for, yeah, getting wasted. On the show, they depict the proposals happening like one after the other, like separate days, but they actually push all the proposals to be on like the 9th day. Everyone that's gonna proposes that day, and then they do the reveal the next day. And reading this reveal lead up was so like romantic. They talk about how they started filming at 7 a.m., but they had to like wait around to see each other until 9 p.m. They went on into that reveal hallway thing. They're literally engaged at this point and have never seen each other. So just like mentally, they're just like thinking like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is insane. What if I don't look good? What if she, like, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., like, being in that mental spiral, that sounds so torturous. It made, when they finally described the reveal, so much more like cathartic because they were pleasantly surprised by each other's looks. It made the anticipation so much more. I think when I watch the TV show, I just know like, okay, yeah, dramatic music, okay, yeah, slow-mo and voiceover, and I just feel like I know the tricks and they don't get me invested. And I didn't realize that. Like, I didn't know I was so uninvested when I'm actually watching the show until I read this book, and I was like, I feel things when I read it from their perspective, and you get to just focus on these two people. So like, I get why the show, you know, you have a lot of people who are following a lot of things, a lot of stuff is condensed, so like, I understand. I just didn't realize like I could have this kind of connection to a reality TV process and like feel so hard for it. I thought I had seen it all, in a sense. Also, at the end of this chapter, when they talk about meeting for the first time, they had some really great advice that I feel like kind of got me on the bandwagon to make them the hosts. You know, everyone's calling for Nick and Vanessa Lachey to go away. There's this one passage, and this is probably the only passage I'll read, but I thought it was like a great piece of advice for all the other contestants on Love is Blind, and a reoccurring unhealthy thing I see on these shows. So don't fall for the idea that love conquers all. Love alone is not sufficient for a healthy relationship, and it is very possible for two people to love each other and still not be right for each other. There has to be a foundation of trust, respect, and compassion in the relationship. There also has to be a willingness to compromise on some things, an unwillingness to compromise on others, and the insight to distinguish between the two, and the wisdom to know the difference. You and your partner both have to have an incredible amount of patience and come to understand that there will be good days and bad. But at the end of the day, you both agree that the value you bring to each other's lives outweighs the difficulties. But love alone is not enough. If you want the best for both you and your partner, make sure you have everything else in the relationship as well. I thought that was so important because on so many of these couples say, like, is love enough? I think of Matt and Colleen, and that was like the aquarium conversation. They're like, is love enough? And they're like, I think so, I guess. And it's like, no, it isn't. Listen to Lauren and Cameron. Love is not enough. You need trust, respect, and compassion. And I think that's very mature, healthy advice. And I feel like maybe Lauren and Cameron would do a good job hosting the show. So they keep talking about the rest of the show journey when they go to the honeymoon. Apparently 8 couples got engaged. I think that's common knowledge about season 1, but I had forgotten. I was kind of gagged. I was like, oh yeah. They like cut couples, I think, from that first season. Apparently the producers pressured Lauren and Cameron to take their robes off in the suite. I thought that was pretty outrageous. And they stood their ground because they're mature and they know what's going on. But they would hear that other contestants were going further on camera. Probably the producers still trying to like make them take their clothes off, but they refused to take their clothes off in front of camera, and they refused to confirm if they had sex in Mexico. In the book, they do confirm that they did. They just didn't They were just coy with the producers. The next round of Love is Blind stuff is integrating into each other's lives. They meet each other's parents, and as we saw in the show, it was a big deal for Cameron to meet Lauren's dad because he's notoriously like hard to please, and they're both very understanding about it. Like, they understand why the dad is overprotective of his daughter. This is crazy, and this shows this couple is truly meant to be, because what the hell is this? Apparently, their parents both have the same names. Cameron's parents and Lauren's parents are both named Pam and Bill. I was wondering that when I saw the dedication at the front, because it just says to both Pams and Bills or something. This book is to both Pams and Bills. And I was like, I must be misinterpreting that, because what the hell? And then later, yeah, they confirm their parents have the same names. That's fate. And also their wedding anniversaries are like a day apart or something. And by the way, they both seem to have come up and raised in like very normal-ish families, like functional 2-parent households, comfortable, I think, like class-wise. Lauren's parents did get divorced later in life, but they still have strong relationships with both sets of parents. They talk a little bit about the moment on the show where they made Cameron rap in front of Lauren's mom, and apparently it was a producer that took Lauren's mom to the other room, and then the mom came back and was like, so I hear you rap. Real natural. I love hearing about these little produced moments, because you know they're happening at all times. They have to happen for like them to get the right answers. Cameron claims they edited the rap to look extra bad. They also talk about an unaired scene where both sets of their parents came over and they talked a lot about serious things like having children and race. We did see a bit of talk on their season about interracial relationships, but this was like with the whole family, and apparently it was like a really important scene for them, and they were kind of surprised it didn't make the show. They actually say that production said it was an audio issue, but it sounds like they're skeptical of that, actually. And so finally we get to the wedding, and it was kind of sad to hear about how Lauren was sad to have the wedding out of her control. She had like her dream wedding in mind, and you know, the show takes complete control over it. She wanted to like take her time to make all the best decisions, like go to cake tastings, go get her wedding dress just with her mom, not with all these other random ladies. And I totally get that. I feel like that's kind of a hard thing about the show. If you're one of these great wholesome couples like the Hamiltons, like Tiffany and Brett and whoever, where you're really present and in it and sure of your relationship, like it must be hard to not have like the wedding of your dreams that matches up to like what you feel that relationship could be. And I'm not a weddings person, but like I can empathize with her having this rushed wedding job and have like none of her preferences be a part of it. Also, leading up to wedding day, Lauren's aunt passed away, and this is a really difficult time obviously for her, and that's why we saw her on the show kind of like want some time away and unsure of saying I do, because she was kind of getting like scared and just needed some time alone. Apparently she took a couple nights away from Cameron, and then at the end of that called him and said, I'm going to say I do at the altar. Cameron talks a lot about how like with Lauren, a lot of what he's had to learn and compromise on is giving her her space, because she was very used to living alone, not sharing her space. So apparently the wedding reception was super rushed. They barely remember it. They were like rushing every part of the reception, and they even made Cameron take off his tuxedo mid-wedding after they had gotten the footage they needed, because they wanted to give the tuxedo back. I was like, are you serious? Like, that's so annoying and messed up. They both talk about like the reception being very happy, but like emphasize how rushed it was to have to get all the scenes for reality TV. And it's like, now speeches and now dancing, and like they were like running through every part just to get the footage. After the wedding, we get to part 3 of the book, and this part was not my favorite. I mean, it was fine. It became more about their marriage post-show and how quiet it felt once the reality TV cameras were gone. They talk about being paranoid that there was still like mics somewhere or being filmed, like because they were so used to it. Not that they were paranoid, like not trusting the producers, more like they were so used to the cameras that they were always like looking for them. And Lauren does note that there is no therapist on Love is Blind and no therapist provided to them afterwards, and she thinks that would have been really helpful, which, yeah, it definitely would. I don't have much hope for reality TV providing something like this, but I think it'd be really nice to the contestants to help them, especially like first navigate getting married or getting rejected at the altar, whatever happened, and then also navigating some of the fame and that kind of aspect too. I'm glad she noted that. I'm like, yeah, there needs to be a therapist, and for them it was just hard. They had just been in this whirlwind and then silence after that. And they did get married in November of 2018. So by the time the show aired, they had been married like 1.5 years. After the altar, like, wedding anniversary was their 2-year anniversary. So they are truly a successful couple because they're still together. It's been like 5 years now. So a lot of these last chapters, they have just their thoughts on marriage, talking about compromise in relationships and sharing a household. Lauren had a hard time fully giving up her own apartment, even though she did live in Cameron's house and moved in there, but eventually they did move in together. They got a dog, and Cameron was not so much a dog person, but he came around with the compromise because dogs help Lauren's anxiety. They have a chapter on race and interracial relationships. They talk about holidays and how they want to approach them, how they want to make their own traditions and grab traditions from their own families. So like these chapters were a lot of kind of like general marriage advice from a nice, healthy, heterosexual couple. It didn't feel like anything revolutionary, but it felt like leaning very positive, and leading a relationship from a place of compassion and really promoting that, which I can appreciate. I think I just don't find those things super unique to the Love is Blind experiment. So that's why they were just chapters I just kind of breezed through. Some of the unique aspects of their relationship came back at the end of part 3 when they talked about the show actually airing and the fame, quote unquote, or notoriety that came from it. They went to like a Knicks game, a basketball game, something, during their press week, and they were on the Jumbotron, how they felt like they made it in that moment. Lauren talks about how she feels like she made it when Shonda Rhimes tweeted about them and being obsessed with them, which is such a flex. Like, I love that. They're talking about this press week they were on for the show, and they mentioned that it was in March 2020, and I was just like, oh my god, they were literally doing press for this show from Atlanta, where they live, to New York, to LA for press week. And it was all like days before the quarantine. They don't really note that weird timeline. They just mention like, after press week, we were quarantined. And I'm like, it's kind of crazy you were traveling, like fully meeting people, going to all these press events right before lockdown hit in the US and in New York, which was like the first place to be really hit. So I think they got lucky. They don't mention they got COVID or anything, so they got lucky. They also talk about social media and how it has affected their relationship. They do focus a lot on the positive comments, which I appreciate, but they talk about how the constant feedback on their lives is really annoying. And I think that's pretty universal. That's why, again, part 3 felt more general and not unique to their experience, but still interesting that all these social media personalities, influencers, I feel like I've heard a lot of them talk about how when you put your life on display, everyone has an opinion on it. So I think being someone that watches a lot of YouTube and is kind of glued to the influencer world and all that, I've heard this commentary a lot from influencers of just like how annoying it is to have feedback from everybody. Like sometimes you just want to post something and not have someone tell you that it's the way you're doing it is wrong, or you shouldn't do that because blah blah blah. Like, unless it's really, fair criticism, I feel like a lot of the times it's just people being obnoxious. And for them, it's a lot of like marriage or love advice or whatever, like people trying to weigh in on their relationship, and I'm sure that gets super annoying. They're too nice to say it so blatantly, but like they imply it. And then they finish up with talking about their next steps. They talk a lot throughout the book about wanting kids, and they're excited for kids, but they're not like in the immediate plan. Now it's like 2 years later and they're still hasn't been like a pregnancy announcement or anything, so I do think they're taking their time. I think I had a lot more fun than I expected on this book, especially like getting a first-person account of what it was like being on season 1 of Love is Blind. I think that's something that's so unique and definitely worthy of a book. I think if it had just been like marriage advice and stuff, it wouldn't have been interesting to me, but it's still really sweet. They're a really sweet couple. It was an easy read, and I figured y'all might enjoy hearing about it. Let me know in the comments if you've read Leap of Faith or seen a lot of the Hanging with the Hamiltons YouTube channel, what you think of either. Also, like, support your local library. If you're not into the library, get into it, because this cost me $0 to read, and I'm gonna give it back tomorrow and it'll be done. My July is kind of stacked with a lot of random stuff, so I don't know how many videos I'll be able to put out this month. I know Love is Blind Brazil season 3 is out, and a lot of people have been asking me to cover it. I think I'll get to it. I've heard good buzz about it, that it's interesting and all that, so like I will get to it. It's just a busy month, but if I make it, y'all better watch it because it's a lot of work. I know, yeah, I feel like y'all will. I hope you're having a good summer. I know I'm living my best Barbie summer, and I did get my tickets for the Barbie movie, so I'm gonna be watching that. That's all I have. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos whenever I feel like it about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!